What do we do about that? How do we deal with a political system which has been handed over to the billionaire class by the Supreme Court? When the Supreme Court, at least two justices, Thomas and Scalia, were openly working for the billionaire class, regularly going to Koch brothers events and giving speeches for which presumably they were paid. This is something that no other federal judge could do. It's a violation of the Federal Code of Judicial Ethics. But the Supreme Court has said, oh, we don't have to live by our own rules. Just like they barred protests from the grass out in front of the Supreme Court, even though they said, well, everybody else has to tolerate this. We don't. We're above the law. We are the kings and queens of America, don't you know? It's really extraordinary. And here you've got, this is Michael Wolff, the author of Fire and Fury. He said, quote, 100% of the people around Trump raised concern about his mental fitness for office. 100%. This guy hung out in the White House for almost a year. He says, and I quote, he said, this is from an interview on NBC this morning. He said, I will tell you the one description that everyone gave. They all say he is like a child. And what they mean by that is he has a need for immediate gratification. It's all about him. Preet Bharara says if this story about Jeff Sessions is true, then he has to resign immediately. That an assistant of Jeff Sessions was out looking for dirt on James Comey 4 days before Comey resigned. Preet Bharara, of course, used to be the U.S. attorney for New York. Trump fired him, and it looks like he's trying to put a more compliant U.S. attorney in that place. Dr. Bandy X. Lee is the editor of a book titled The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, which includes testimonials from 27 psychiatrists and mental health experts. There's a piece about this by Annie Carney over at Politico right now. It's titled Washington's Growing Obsession, the 25th Amendment. And Dr. Lee came to Washington, D.C. last month in December and testified for 2 full days before members of the Senate. There was 1 Republican and 14 Democrats. And in her testimony, and they were concerned about Trump's mental health. In her testimony, she said, and I quote, he's going to unravel and we are seeing the signs. She says he's going back to conspiracy theories, denying things he has admitted before, is being drawn to violent videos. We feel that the rush of tweeting is an indication of his falling apart under stress. Trump is going to get worse and will become uncontainable with the pressures of the presidency. Serious stuff. So what do we do about this? I mean, here, this, for example, there's another article over in Politico that is a real absolute must-read. It's titled Donald Trump's Year of Living Dangerously. And it opens with this dinner back in September 18th in New York City, when the UN was in General Assembly. And Trump went and he addressed the United Nations. And he had this dinner with representatives. And I'm not sure if these were the principals, if these were like the presidents or if these were the diplomats, but it was the representatives of Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Panama. And the article notes his Vice President Mike Pence was to his right. To Trump's left was his Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Quote, Rex tells me you don't want to use the military option in Venezuela, the president told the gathered Latin American leaders, according to an account offered by an attendee soon after the dinner. Is that right? Are you sure? Everyone said they were sure, but they were rattled. War with Venezuela, as absurd as that seemed, was clearly still on Trump's mind. By the time the dinner was over, the leaders were in shock. This must have been the presidents of these 4 countries. Trump struck them as uninformed about their issues and dangerously unpredictable, asking them to expend political capital on behalf of a U.S. that no longer seemed a reliable partner. And then this is a quote from one of the people who was there. The word they all used was, this guy is insane. You getting this? Now, it's Anything Goes Friday. You can call and talk about anything you want, but this seems like really serious stuff. Brought to you by the Supreme Court, the Republican Party, and the billionaire class. This is essentially the cancer stage. You know, I talk about the cancer stage of capitalism. We're witnessing it. is where capitalism takes over democracy and stifles democracy to the point where the capitalists get their people in power. To hell with what the rest of us want. You know, the Virginia legislature just was by a drawing of a film can from a canister was given to the Republican because the vote was a tie. But the fact of the matter is that tens of thousands more Virginians voted for Democrats in this last election than voted for Republicans. So how is it that the legislature is 50-50? Gerrymandering. I mean, this is the crazy stuff. And where did the gerrymandering come from? It was a project that was funded in part by one of the billionaire groups. There's a whole 2008, 2009 backstory to the whole gerrymandering thing that came about in 2010, 2011. And it's a pretty breathtaking story about this one young Republican operative who had this idea for a project to flip all these states red just into, right after the census. And now they're trying to play with the census again this time by adding a question, are you or is anybody in this household or in this house an illegal immigrant? Well, it's, a lot of people don't want to hear that. And I'm not talking about illegal immigrants. I'm talking about people of Hispanic ancestry who are just like over it, or who are concerned or worried that they're getting caught in the crossfire. Speaking of caught in the crossfire, police officers in the United States killed about 1,000 people again last year. The Washington Post reporting 3 years in a row, roughly 1,000 people killed by police in the United States. Police killed more of us than terrorists did. What does this say about us and about our police?